Hello, everyone. Welcome to Breathwork podcast. And here we have dear Stefan Robinson as our guest today. Welcome, Stefan.
Hiya, you okay?
Yeah, thank you. How about you?
Yeah, I'm great. I'm great. Thanks for
Yeah,
having us on
great.
the show. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you too. Yeah, so let's start talking about it's mental and let's start talking about your journey on working on mindfulness and mental wellness, especially in the corporate space. How did you start your journey? When did you decide to go on a journey on
Well,
mindfulness and mental wellness? Yeah.
I think just on my personal journey, yeah, it's quite an hard journey to start off with because we had two suicides in the family. I lost my brother-in-law in 2016 and my brother in 2018. So as a family, not just me, you go through a lot of experiences, emotions, etc. And we started to learn about the system, how the NHS in the UK works, how it doesn't work, the good, the bad, and the ugly, and just a lot of frustrations. Really, that obviously when you've lost two members of the family, you're frustrated on what you could have done. Everybody goes through that when they've lost somebody, even just in an illness or something like that. They've lost somebody. Could you do anything else? And everybody goes through that emotion and that bereavement stage. But I think even more so that year, the same year, 2018, as you do, you feel you can bulldoze through it and just keep on working and the emotions will go away. But I had a breakdown and burnout the back end of 2018. And I think once you start to feel them emotions, it becomes a reality. Does that make sense? I mean, you understand that other people have gone through it, like two close members of your family, and you don't understand, what they're going through mentally and physically. So I think what was like an awakening for me because I didn't want to go on medication. I understood that it wasn't good for my brother, and I just thought when I looked at society that we're living today, I had this outlook, this vision that people like in a washing machine where they go for some counselling, they're probably on medication, life's going to chuck some adversity at you and they go back to the start rather than try and push forward. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's not deep enough. The work that's being done around the world is not deep enough, and we're experiencing it right now. We're actually in the heart of it. There has been two big earthquakes in Turkey, and it's the biggest in the past 500 years. They say like a few cities are gone, and people died, and everybody's got affected. And we just finished a podcast with the Turkish podcast team, and we had a psychologist over there, and we were talking about how traumatic it is and how everybody is in a emotionally very challenging state. And we exactly see what you experienced, like people lost their families, friends, and they started thinking I should have done something about it. And the reason why the earthquake affected so many people is because the buildings weren't built in a proper way, of course. And it's there are people in the government who are responsible for that. There are, the builders are responsible for that. There's a lot of course, shame and judgment going on as well. There is this emotional earthquake happening right now around the Turkish community, I think all around the world, and people are experiencing the same thing. And the already existing resources are sometimes not deep enough. It's like, I see that happening everywhere around the world.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, obviously it's tragic, and obviously with the going now to COVID and then them 2 years, that will probably the experience that so many people had in a lockdown situation to try and cope with that situation, the uncertainty. I think post-COVID, so many people are looking for some alternative. And I think, with what you're doing and what we're doing at It's Mental, it's giving people that opportunity. Does that make sense? To cope. It's giving them the coping mechanisms to manage stress, to manage coping with bereavement. It's coping with anxiety, etc. And I think, that is where, It's Mental was born. And obviously the Breath Hub as well, it's all giving people different techniques to teach themselves to practice different routines, healthy habits, to be able to manage this and I think as human beings, we've been through so much and we'll go through more again, obviously. So something's going to happen. And it's how we cope with that. And I think what we saw at It's Mental, there was just, counselling's a good thing, don't get me wrong. Counselling has its place and therapy has its place. But I just feel when people open up and they start the talking therapy and then it finishes after 8, 10, 12 sessions, whatever it is, people still don't have the tools to sustain it. Does that make sense? They don't have the know-how to actually be more resilient, and they don't have something to go back to. So they keep going back to the GP, the local doctor, or they go back to the counselling that they had, and it's going from back to step one again. They're not progressing. And that's where the washing machine effect that I was on about before is still happening. And I think society needs to change. And obviously with, the app that you do, which is brilliant, and our web application, what we're trying to do is give people the tools, aren't we, to actually cope with this and be more resilient and instantly get access to it. I think that's the really important thing here, that people aren't waiting, which is happening in the UK. The UK, the NHS is overwhelmed with mental health
issues,
issues and obviously disorders, and they can't cope with it. Hence why organisations like us are trying the prevention route, to stop preventing people dropping into severe, stopping them going into crisis. And that's where obviously then it's an horrible place to be. And there's a lot of people been in there, but you can prevent that. But you've got to be proactive. Does that make sense? You've got to be.
Yeah, and I think when I look at everything that's happening worldwide right now, the whole mental crisis, the need for mental wellness and psychological wellness, it's like, I think because we're in the 21st century and we humans have been here on Earth for a long time, and emotions have been building and incidents and stuff have been building, not only in our own journeys, but also our ancestors' journeys. Right now, it's, I think, very important to understand that emotional crisis is a part of our lives right now, and it's our self-responsibility. It's not NHS responsibility, NHS's responsibility or someone else's responsibility. It's my responsibility to keep myself mentally, psychologically healthy and well. And I can only do that by daily practice, because we live in an era where we need that. It's like, don't wait for a bigger crisis. We're already in an emotional crisis almost every day. It's like, with the whole social media, with the whole output, like with whatever is happening around the world, the whole information, we're living in an information age. Many years ago, even 10 years ago, 20 years ago, people wouldn't know if there was an earthquake in Turkey and tens of thousands of people died, but now they know. So it's like we're constantly getting this information, and our emotions are constantly getting triggered. Even by watching a video on social media, you get triggered daily. So we need daily practices. I think this is the most important thing for people living in this era to understand. First, it's our responsibility, and it's our daily responsibility. I need a daily practice. I need a daily ritual to keep myself emotionally well and healthy, and there is no other way. It's like, I've been teaching breath work and meditation for almost 20 years now, and with everything I have done, taught to tens of thousands of people, and also learned along the journey, this is the only thing I can say. It's like, this is the only two things. I am responsible for my mental health, and for that to happen, I need a daily practice. If people get that, we are going to be living in a very different world in the next 5 to 10 years. If people really do understand it's their responsibility and it needs daily practice, we can reach to sustainable health and well-being, because we already have the tools. We already have the methods, the apps and this and that. What are your ideas around that? That's like the formula I found.
It is. Well, I mean, when I was really struggling, the one thing I went to was meditation. And I still think it's, I still do it today. I still have me off days, obviously, because that's about discipline. It's about accountability, doing them routines and doing it like a ritual. And the fast pace of modern life, you need to keep that balance. You need to keep a routine, but good routine, good habits. And I think that's the transition I made. But meditation was the starting point. I think to me, it's what people struggle with because the fast pace and the technology, we've not evolved as our brains have not evolved. It's just getting worse and worse to me. People will contact friends and business contacts. They all have their own way of contacting you. Used to be by just phone. Now it was email. Now it's WhatsApp. Now it's Messenger. Does that make sense? You're coping with so many different communication lines that I'm not surprised we're all overwhelmed. But the trick is you've got to bring your back self to the present time. And I think, obviously you do so many classes and so many teaching for, people struggle with that present time and actually just shutting off, even for it's a couple of minutes. It could be a couple of minutes. And, going in the workplace and working with corporate companies, they've got to see that as a benefit. Does that make sense to the staff? Giving them that time. It doesn't have to be breaks where for half an hour or etc. It could be just short break times where they allow them to meditate. There's religions out there that pray. To me, praying is like meditation. A lot of corporates have prayer rooms. That's great, but also we should have meditation rooms in the same way. Does that make sense? Because it's the same thing to me. And I think
and in everyday life, and
I just think that's so vital moving forward to be able to cope. Is to have that time out, even if it's for 5 minutes meditation. It doesn't have to be 20 minutes. It has to be half an hour. But I think what I found, and sometimes I really find it difficult when I have got a busy day or a busy week to try and meditate and stay in that zone for a period of time, because your mind is on overdrive, and it's about calming the mind. It's about getting that stillness. And I think, I call it mind fitness. A lot of people in the corporate world about meditation will think it's more quite religious or spirituality. Well, it is spiritual, and we're all spiritual. We're all energy, and people need to understand that a bit more. And I think there's a lot of education piece that we could bring in, and I know you are, I know we're trying, but we try and change the terminology in some ways by calling it mind fitness, to train the mind as you would muscles. Do you know what I mean? You might not be able to concentrate for 2 minutes, but if you keep doing it in a month, you'll be able to concentrate maybe for 8 minutes or 10 minutes. And I think that is important on progression. And we all know the benefits of that. The benefits are amazing. I think, I think it's improved so much for me with family, children, spending time. We're all busy people. Obviously, we run companies, and you are busy, but you've got to understand what present time is. And present time is not sat by your child on your phone or watching TV. It's actually focusing on that child. And I think we've lost that sight. Do you know what I mean? We've lost and we've moved away from that because this fast pace, the traditions of sitting having family meals and talking or doing something together has been lost over time, because there's so many interruptions, there's so many things out there with technology that just sidetrack you. Do you know what I mean?
I think what needs to change, and I'm going to ask you what's going what's happening in the corporate environment as well, because you also work with corporates, like where they are in understanding this. I think the first step to understand is, because we are humans, we do need daily shutting down. It's like you said, like 5 minutes, 10 minutes during the day. We do need those, and we do need those breaks urgently. Because if we don't get those, if we don't have those breaks, if we don't take time to, breathe, meditate, just stay with ourselves, and because we are focusing outwards the whole time, and so much going on, it's like every day is exhausting. And every day, people are exhausted each and every day. And that's the reality of our lives. I think it's time to understand that. It's like our everyday lives are exhausting, period. So how are we going to cope with that? We need to integrate daily breaks and daily practices into our lives so that we don't, experience a health crisis, a bigger health crisis. And that's why my team is writing that now, prevention is better than cure. Of course, prevention is better than cure, but I think this is even deeper than just preventing. It's like to go on with your daily life. You need that daily. It's like now it's more you need it daily than you need it. I don't know if it makes sense, but it's like like urgently and daily. I don't know if the how are the corporates with that idea, like understanding that.
I think most of it in the UK, I mean, a lot of the corporates are reactive. If you look at what's in place, and there's a lot of things for well-being, but it's more like insurance, it's occupational health, it's employee benefits, it's mental health first aid, which have its place, the great benefits, but they're very reactive. You've got to get into a state of crisis to enter these services. So again, it's all not putting responsibility on the person. It's an educational piece that corporates need to get hold of. And also, there's nothing better that you can give anybody is time. But the time has to have direction. Does that make sense? So you could give your employees breaks, but are they utilizing them breaks, which is going to make them more productive, more balanced at work, be able to relieve pressure in stressful situations. And I think you've got to give them tools. I mean, one thing that we do, obviously, as you know, we do a lot of coaching, but coaching has been a privilege for a lot of people in the past, and a lot of employees, probably more so in corporate than in small business. Obviously, coaching's been there for a long time, don't get me wrong. But the thing is, it's got to be in bite-sized chunks. We do something we launched a service last year called Pep Talks. And what we thought was, look, it's about just giving people 15 minutes to vent, or just to have that time with a third party to get a different perspective. Rather than, yes, I'll have 6 coaching sessions and stuff. I don't understand the benefit. You've got to understand, as we know, you've got to understand your goals and your vision before you go into and enter into something like that. But for someone that just needs that release, or say that, for instance, the scenarios, they're doing a presentation and they're stressed and they've just got some mental block. They can't go to the boss because, that's the presentation's for, so it shows a weakness or that they're not skilled enough. They can't go to colleagues because it's more of a dog-eat-dog world. And they can't go to the partner because the partner won't understand. And the friends are working in different sectors. So where do you go to? And it's not like you need to go to an expert. You just need a different third-person perspective. And I think that is what, if you do that over a period of time, people are releasing, so the bucket's not filling up. And what we see, that is what ends up in people being burnt out. It's just constantly being filled up. They have sleepless nights. They're not doing any medication, any breath work, any coping mechanisms. So they burn out. That's exactly what happened with me in my corporate world. And I think it's so important that they have to take, your word there was responsibility. We have to take personal responsibility for our own mental and physical health. And, we do it physically, as a lot of people do physical fitness, but they've got to think about mental health in the same breath. and they have to take that seriously. And one relates to another, but it's, you know, as in what you're doing, you know, yoga, you know, is fitness and mental. Walking is mental and fitness, but it's how you approach it. So it's not like you have to come up with loads of new things in your daily life. It's just how you're embracing it and how you're, you know, what you take seriously and what you understand. And that takes, you have to learn these things, you know, you have to and embrace these things to move forward, definitely. And I think that's what organizations like us need to do with the corporates, is give, you know, teach them a strategy to understand people more and what the people need. It's not just about, you know, giving them some time in the day to have a coaching session as a group. Yes, the benefits.
To smoke, or, you know, instead of giving time for a smoke,
yeah,
or something else, like giving time for them to, you know, meditate,
yeah,
breathe, get coaching, get support.
yeah,
take the time. That's actually, like, I like what you said. It's like the best thing you can give to people is time, and it's like giving back their time, giving the time for themselves. Maybe we can even call it, you know, time for yourself in between the day, you know,
yeah,
like time
exactly.
for yourself trend in the corporate environment. I think that would be a great trend, and the corporates would benefit amazingly. And you said there is still resistance, and there is still like, where do you think are especially the executives in understanding the importance
I think
of these
the thing
breaks
for
and the
me,
importance of
yeah, I think the thing is, it's a bit like the oxygen mask approach, you know, with directors, you know, we call it the C-suite, which are the CEOs and things like that of companies. You know, they've got to take it serious. They've got to believe in it first, which then, you know, passes down through, you know, the different departments and things like that. You know, if they don't believe, and it's, you know, what we've been CEOs and directors, it's a lonely place for them. It's so lonely. And I think it's really important that we do work with them to realize the benefits. I mean, till they receive the benefits and understand their routines need to change, I don't think change within corporates will actually happen, because it'd be piecemeal. They were just reactive to certain things that's happening. And I think what you've done is, you know, what every company wants is a positive culture. You know, that it's never going to, you know, you can't have an eyesight, especially with a big corporate, that everyone's going to be happy. That's impossible. But what you can do is set certain standards. It could be a vision. It could be a mission. You know, I've got a good friend and mentor, Mark Ashton, that he always does a lot of talks and a lot of consulting to corporates. And his slogan is purpose beyond profit. So he works with a lot of corporates to say, get your employees enthused about the purpose. Let's not talk about profit. Profit will come naturally if you get everybody enthused and have a direction, and they understand that purpose and the benefit, what they're doing and what the company's purpose is. And I think if you get people to buy into that, once they come on board, I think that naturally, you know, you're getting the right people. It's not about qualifications, just qualifications. It's not about just personalities. It's beliefs. It's underlying that what they believe in. Everyone now not everyone, but there's a big surge of people now that want to do good in the world. Do you know what I mean? They want to do positive things in the world post-COVID. And everyone's different how they want to attain that. But I think companies need to latch onto that. I mean, the amount of vision statements and mission statements that have been changed within corporate post-COVID is immense. Because
that's great to hear. That's great to hear.
Employees were never involved in that process. Does that make sense? It was more from the top. This is what we do. Yes, they'll put it on the website. Yes, they'll put it on some literature. But people aren't buying into that. And I think underlying people that, you know, are not happy in work, there's that underbelly as they probably don't believe in what they're doing, or what they're involved in a corporate world. Does that make sense? And I think,
yeah, exactly, yeah,
people need to get that as moving forward. They need to understand though where they're spending majority of the time. Does it align with their core values?
yeah. It's I think it's the difference between inspiration and motivation. When employees are inspired from within, which will only happen when their unique personal values are aligned with the company's values and purposes, then it's a different story. If you need to motivate your employees the whole time, if they don't have the inner inspiration, it does affect the profits. It does affect, your growth.
Yeah.
It's like, it's so important. And as a founder and CEO, I know the importance. It's a big deal. It's like, I have worked with people who had the same values as my company, and they were inspired from within, and they do amazing stuff, like the creativity and the ideas and how they work. It's totally different than someone that doesn't feel connected to company's purpose and doesn't understand and doesn't align their personal values with the company's values. It's like you need to constantly motivate them, and they don't even listen full-heartedly in a meeting, and then things go wrong.
Yeah, that's where the disengagement comes from, where an employee who is not engaging in certain tasks or well-being activities because, they've just not been educated with where the company's trying to achieve. And it doesn't have to be a
and they don't care enough.
Yeah, exactly, because they're just a number. And I think cultural beliefs are so important to people, especially in times of uncertainty. You have to believe in something. Does that make sense? To have that balance and something to move forward that does inspire you. That could be religion. It could be spirituality. It could be working for a company that is ethical, that's, helping people in a certain way. But I think that is where, and that's happening. That movement is exciting because it's happening, because obviously the brilliant thing I think about COVID was the big resignation. 750,000 people didn't go back to the jobs. Now, there could be 101 reasons, but I think people have that time out to realize, what am I doing? What am I doing in life? And life is short. I'm not going to do that anymore. They had a brave decision to say, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to move forward in a different way. And that's brilliant, because that's...
that's great. That's great. That's amazing, especially on the personal level.
Yeah.
And, having experienced that, it's getting harder and harder for companies to attract talent as well.
Yeah, definitely.
Once people are more aware, And
I think what companies really struggle with is how to engage with staff with mental health and well-being. Well-being's a bit easier because it's encompassing, but mental health, there's a lot of tentative approaches. And I think what they do is they obviously have to educate themselves with mental health, because there's two sides to it, let's be honest. There's an employee side and there's an employer side. And, the figures are very high when it comes to absenteeism. The new thing in workplace, which is they don't know how to deal with it, is presenteeism. So they're functioning at work, but they're not productive because there's something going on inward. And I think what they have to realize is, well, you've got to help them people, but it's a different way of approaching. It's not disciplinary. It's not by policy. You've got to do it in a humane way. And I think that's what they struggle with, because everything's driven by policy. Does that make sense? And I think that is where, like, HR really struggle with, and people engaging with companies is very low, because, the bigger the company, if you're, in a corporate company and HR send you an email, you would probably feel a sense of anxiety, because they don't contact you that much unless it's usually bad news. Do you know what I mean? Or it's a disciplinary, or it's you know, something to do with personal development, as in a meeting or your annual appraisal. And I think what HR really have to do, and that's why, don't get me wrong, this is evolving. That's why we've got heads of people, chief of people. You know, it is evolving, don't get me wrong, and it's brilliant to see. But I think the speed of my point making is how they engage with people on a regular basis needs to be worked on, because they have to be proactive. You can't just sit back and wait something to happen or someone to struggle and say, you know, Pamela's struggling because of this reason, we need to help her. We should have things in place to help them on a regular basis to keep, and that's going to enhance, you know, cohesion, productivity, all them type of things.
Exactly. Thank you. I think this was a very productive conversation. Thank you very much for everything you said, all the experience. What would be the last message you would like to say? What would be the last message you'd like to give?
Well,
corporates, I mean, especially.
I just think, like, prevention, as we say, prevention is better than cure. I think it's a passive statement, but in the UK, obviously, that is, you know, it's one of the headline statements for the NHS, social services, you know, HMRC, you know, the government. Prevention is better than cure is on all them websites. It's not something we've created. And I think what people have to do, that message is consistent, and it's not put up there for a reason, only to, like, let's educate people. But there's a massive gap. It's all right saying it, but are they actually doing it? So my thing is, be proactive, engage with employees, and have strategies that aren't just reactive. You know, keep engaging with these employees and understand them more. But it's, you know, it's being proactive with pushing Breath Hub as an app, you know, having this app in place, having the tools. And not everybody's going to use them, but at least the company's done the right thing proactively. That's what I want to see in the future.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
No problem.
Thanks to all of our listeners. Yeah, and anyone who's watching us in YouTube. And hopefully we'll connect again. Bye for now, Stephen.
Thank you.
Stefan, sorry. Yeah, everybody, bye.
Bye.